That's for $8. Hey everybody, this is Chandler, and you're listening to Loudspeaker or watching Loudspeaker. And I'm sitting here in Normal, Illinois, and we are about to do our first ever online interview. And for those of you that don't know what's happening, we're on Google Hangouts, and we're about to interview one of my good friends and very talented, one of the most talented people that I know, Ethan Millspaugh. And before we go into that, and I introduce you guys to this talented person, I just wanted to give you guys a shout out and let you know thank you for watching it live. And if you're not watching it live and you're watching it on some random day, thank you for watching, because we really appreciate it. And we love to be able to share your voices and share the different ideas that the world has to offer. So without further ado, I'm about to introduce you to a man who is a filmmaker and an actor and all-around creative guy. And he has a new project that he's working on called August. It's a short film, and he's going to tell you more about it later on in the show. But it's a really exciting thing, and I can't wait to have him share it with you guys. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Ethan. Hello, Ethan.
How's it going, Chandler? How are you?
Doing all right, and give a little shout out to all the Loudspeaker fans or August fans or whoever's watching. Say hello to them.
Whoever's watching, thank you for watching. I super appreciate it. Good to see you.
And I guess before we get into August and everything, I guess let me just give you a quick little rundown of how the show is gonna go. Think of it first, Ethan, as kind of inside the actor's studio. I'm gonna kind of be sitting back and maybe a little bit like Lipton, how do you feel about the role of Keanu Reeves in Speed?
And I feel pretty good about it too, by the way. And that was a good Lipton.
I tried my best. I don't watch it enough, but I'm working on it. But you're gonna answer questions about that, your background, creativity, all those different types of things, and then we're gonna get into the real topic. The hot topic, which is August, and talk about that. And maybe we'll have a little quiz somewhere between this. And then for those of you that are listening live right now, please give a shout out to us on the interwebs, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere that you can. And just tweet if you have any questions to Ethan. Ethan, I think, will answer almost any and every question, except for, choosing between, I don't know, In-N-Out burgers and some other burgers. I don't know. I'm not gonna put that pressure.
Burger questions are off limits.
I'm not gonna put that pressure on him. But if you have any question for him, please give a tweet and attach to us at speechneverdies.org #Millspaugh speaks. Okay. If you tweet that to us, we'll try to ask that question to him and try and make it fun. Get you guys involved. Anyway. My first question, Ethan, I guess, is just give us a little bit of background of your growing up, upbringing, all that stuff.
My upbringing, wow. Well, I grew up in Texas mostly, although I moved around a little bit in kind of the southeast. I lived in Atlanta for like 7 months randomly, and I lived in Waco, and I kind of finally got my feet planted in Dallas when I was kind of in elementary school. I ended up really growing up in a suburb of Dallas called Coppell, and was a part of just kind of the normal, I think, Texas public school system kind of experience growing up. I went to high school at Coppell High School, which is a high school in Coppell. Shout out Cowboys, I guess.
Okay.
I got into theater as well as other like art forms. Like I did music. Growing up, my dad worked in the music industry, does work in the music industry. So all the arts really, just kind of like exploring everything. But when I got into high school, theater was really the thing that I was into. So I was, doing plays and doing like community theater, all the stuff that you do when you're in high school and you're a theater nerd. That's what I was doing. But at the same time, this would have been my junior year of high school, I was introduced to this thing, maybe you've heard of it, called speech and debate. For the first time, because we had a really small, teeny tiny program. It was like me and another person, basically. who started doing that, and I just randomly got into it because my speech and debate coach, Melita Kunkel, shout out Melita Kunkel, was really close to the theater department, and I just didn't get into a play or something happened, and she was like, hey, you want to do this thing called interpretation? It's kind of like acting, but it's only 10 minutes and it's really competitive. And I was like, that sounds cool. So that was really the first time I got to explore what it meant to be like, you know, your own director, your own editor, your own writer, you know, your own performer, and kind of construct performances, you know, in whatever way that means or connotes, you know, for yourself, for other people.
Now, focusing on that real quick, in the sense of when it comes to you, and I mean, that's your first experience to this type of creativity. It's unique, and I mean, of course, I know, you know, about the speech community. I know about forensics, you know, and hopefully, you know, a lot of people that are watching this know about it. But for those that don't, you know, it's this creation that's unique to itself, but it has those elements of the director, the editor, the actor, and you play all roles of that. So I guess, what was that feeling for you, you know, being the first time for you to be able to create that?
I mean, it was like you said, it was very unique. You know, my first kind of in with the speech community, I did a poetry. It was this is kind of maybe before programs were like a huge thing. So it was a single poem. It was kind of like a prose poem about this kid who was, you know, just like kind of an awkward teenager and like dealing with a lot of the things that I still thematically deal with, like in my movies and in my own art, and that's kind of like love and loss at the same time, and like family and relationships and all of the kind of messiness and reality that can be put into, you know, like a whatever 17-year-old doing speech. But it was, you know, I always saw it through the framework of kind of the way that I described it, which was that what was cool and, you know, attractive about speech, and specifically interpretation for me, was, you know, as a performance person, I was able to not just, you know, be handed a role that's already been written, you know, in a lot of cases been passed down for like, you know, 50 to 100 years through like the, you know, theater tropes and troupes, and actually get to create something that was a little bit closer to home, you know. Mm-hmm. And that was by, you know, creating, you know, taking literature that was more personal to me, you know, what I really wanted to perform, you know, cutting it down into a story that I really wanted to tell, you know, attaching that introduction to it with the message that I really wanted to get heard, and then being able to fully immerse myself in the character development, visualization, the internalization, the externalization of, you know, this piece of literature that I obviously felt very strongly about, and this message that I really wanted to tell people. So that was my real first, you know, outlet in what I see as my kind of current medium of, you know, sort of creative self-expression.
So let's fast forward to that. So let's, in the sense of you got kind of the root, the base of you and the creativity. Now, how did you get into film?
I got into film, funny enough, kind of, well, not kind of, definitely through speech. You know, as I developed my skills and my craft over, you know, my 4 college years, which are really when I started kind of heavily doing speech and debate, because I didn't really know it existed when I was in high school. And I found out about it, and I had the opportunity to really explore it and put all my time and energy into it when I was in undergrad. So then when I went to graduate school, I met up with someone who was already kind of doing the film thing. And when I say kind of doing, he was already doing the film thing. And I was able to link up to him because he was someone, you know, that I really strongly connected to. And this is Nicholas Bateman, who is our editor, who I'm talking about, and who also produced and edited and was in November, which is another part of the series. So meeting with him, you know, when I was going to graduate school, we, you know, like basically lived together, and we were working on a film of his at the time called The Circus Animals, which, look it up because it's awesome. Totally unbiased, I guess. And he was kind of at the end stages of it. He'd already filmed it, was already basically finished editing it. Was just trying to kind of put the final touches on it, get it into festivals, kind of work on distribution, that sort of thing. So I helped him out on that end of things, and then we really, became really close over the course of a year. And he actually encouraged me to move in with him to Baltimore, which is where he's from, and where the production company that we made the first film, November, was based. And so I did that, and I moved in to a place in just outside of Bolton Hill on the edge of Drew Hill and Bolton Hill, which is a really cool neighborhood. I enjoyed living there. Drew Hill is where Cisco is from, so shout out to Cisco, because I feel like that needed to be in here.
The thong song.
Yeah, shout out to the thong song, shout out to Druid Heights, all that.
Okay.
So, we really got this time to spend together just working on movies together, and that's kind of how I got.
Because I'm stuck on Cisco for a second here. Because I mean, you can't just like drop a bomb like that and say Cisco, and then just be like, yeah, same school, whatever. Okay, so was he rocking the silver hair beforehand? Was like,
I don't know. I honestly don't know what Cisco is up to now. I don't know. I think I saw somewhere that he just did a concert. That's all I know about Cisco at the moment.
I'm just saying, like did you see him like walking down, like just giving? I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to embarrass myself.
I wish that I had seen him in Baltimore. Unfortunately, I did not, because I think that really would have completed my experience of the city of Baltimore. Because if I could have hung out with Cisco, it's my one regret.
But anyway, back to what you're talking about.
Yeah, so meeting Nick and getting to work with him over the course of living in Baltimore, which I lived there for I think about 9 months. Was really, great from an artistic point of view, but specifically was a fantastic introduction into the medium of film, because while I was there, we were working on stuff and totally immersed in film, and that was a really cool experience that I really wouldn't have had if it wasn't for him, so thank you to him. I love him. But we ended up making the first short film, which I decided to write after I had moved to Baltimore, called November, and that was only made possible through Painstaking Pictures, which is the production company that Nick started, and is really the reason I am here today talking to you.
Now, let me ask you one of the first questions that I have. That's involving, I guess, you're around all these creative people, and I love creativity. I think it's one of the most beautiful organic things that a person can have, especially when it comes through film. So, for you, I mean, really quickly, what is your thoughts when it comes to that organic, creative nature? How do you feel about it being around people, having to, share something that's passionate to you with the whole entire world?
I mean, that's something that, is really close to my heart, but I think also, naturally as a member of the speech community is something that you almost grow accustomed to, being around creative people all the time. I love it, because I think that at least the way that my mind works is this constant kind of cycle between impressions and expressions. So I'm constantly, being inspired by, what the people around me are creating, what, and especially, in the film industry, getting to work with talented people like Nick and like our cinematographer David Ross. I get inspired by the work that they do, and it certainly informs and affects and directs the work that I do in, a lot of ways. But even larger than that, I mean, we were both at the National Forensic Association National Tournament this past weekend. Just being able to be surrounded by these people who are being so creative in the way that they're sharing their messages and the way that they're constructing performances and the way that they're, interpreting literature it always leaves a strong impression on me, as it does, I'm sure, anyone. I don't know too many people who go to the national tournament and are just stone facing everything. It's not a common occurrence. It's such an emotional, enlightening, inspirational time. Keeps drawing you back in. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question about creativity, I love being surrounded by creative people. I think it's really what fuels my fire, gives me the passion and the drive to keep going. If it wasn't for that, I don't know how I would operate.
What was the moment especially when it comes to film, that you're like, yes, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
You know, honestly, I don't even know what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm just kind of enjoying the journey thus far. Um, but I think that it was something, you know, to be real, if we're being real, which I want to be. Um, I think, you know, when you leave the speech and debate community, which you're kind of forced into because it's, you know, a collegiate activity. It's not something that, you know, there is a professional, you know, arena for. When you kind of get, you know, nudged out of something that, at least for me, I was kind of, I feel like starting to find my, you know, in my own style, my own voice, you know, in the activity, having only done it for 5, 6 years. You know, you have to find you immediately have to switch gears and kind of find a new way to express those things as a creative person or as an artistic person or just as an expressive, just as a human being. You have to find, you know, a new medium for those, you know, new creative outlet for all that stuff that you want to say, that speech is so great about helping you, you know, cultivate that, you know, bring to the surface what it is that you have to say and what it is that's, you know, that are the messages that are important to you. So being able to find something relatively quickly like film that I was, you know, creatively driven towards, but also intellectually, emotionally, expressively, artistically, was, I think, in a lot of ways kind of a miracle for me. It felt very much like, wow, I'm able to find this place that, you know, I can delve into. I can, you know, in the same way that you do with speech a lot of times, where you say, okay, I have these 4 years, or I have, you know, this one tournament, or I have this one goal that I'm leading up to that I just want to, you know, totally immerse myself in this activity. And I think that's really what film has been able to provide for me in terms of my creative outlet, but also, you know, even beyond just film, art in general, because, you know, while, you know, like my short films or the series that I'm constructing is very much, you know, heavily reliant on the film medium, I think there are a lot of other aspects to it, you know, both from, you know, like a PR standpoint, production standpoint, as well as artistically. I mean, there's other like supplementary things that I've made that have gone along, you know, with the films and other projects that I've been involved in that have definitely helped let some of that creativity be expressed, which I think is so hard for people when you get into kind of, you know, real life, like post-college life.
And yeah, and that's the thing that I think is crazy, because I mean, I've been going through that transition for, you know, from undergrad to grad school. I mean, and for me, it seems like I'm constantly going through that transition, especially with Loudspeaker and with that creativity thing. We're surrounded by a lot of amazing people, but to a certain extent, you know, that creative aspect versus reality is like a scary thing. And so I guess, you know, what would you say to somebody that would ask you, which I'm going to ask you, is, you know, what do you say to them about the determination to pursue your creative dreams?
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it, you know, is having the ability or the opportunity to find what it is that you love to do and to be able to be determined about it. You know, I think a lot of times, exactly what you're saying, you know, I mean, the journey and the transition is all, you know, sometimes feels like it's more than the end goal or like the, you know, stable point that you're reaching, which I think is very, you know, I think that's probably real life. I mean, I think that's certainly something that I've experienced and kind of internalized as, well, this is the way that it goes. So I think it's, you know, important to encourage those people who are determined, but I also think it's important to try and, you know, as you're on that journey, open up opportunities for other people who may not have something to be determined about, which I think is very all too common, you know, kind of in the arts today, generally speaking, as well as, you know, in something specific like film or speech or, you know, performance. I think times are tough, basically. Like, so I think it's important that, you know, you be determined, but also that you, it's hard to say, but like find a chance to, you know, really do what you love or find out what you love. I mean, I still, you know, think that I'm on that kind of road where it's like I haven't necessarily feel like I know in essence what I love and what I love doing, but it's, you know, getting your actual foothold in reality on how to make concrete steps towards achieving, you know, this more ethereal goal, at least from my point of view. That's the difficult part. So, you know, I don't certainly wouldn't claim to have advice about, you know, how to do something like that, but you know, I think determination is important for sure.
I think, you know, I mean, you're on the journey, and soon, you know, 3 years from now, you're gonna have all the wisdom to be dealing with everybody and everything like that. But I mean, I definitely think you're an example of showing that determination. And so, I mean, right there alone, you have a visual example of it. And so, one of the things that I want to go back to is because you see those building blocks, especially with the creativity and everything. What is your, and could you turn down your volume real quick? I mean,
Yeah.
This is live. Just turn it down, because I'm getting like tons of feedback, and this is the craziness about live and everything.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah. One of the crazy things about creativity is that it's a building block process. And we got a tweet from somebody asking you a question, and I figured that you built upon, you like see the creativity, you're like, wow, that's amazing, I want to do something like that, and then, you know, you go off and do your own dream. So we're gonna throw back to speech, and at AJ Curry, she tweets and she asks you, what are some of your favorite performances that you saw at Nationals or all time, or favorite of yours?
That's a great question. You know, I live that it catches me by surprise too, because I hadn't prepared for that. But you know, I've seen some incredible performances just this year alone. I guess this is a little bit biased, but KB Brown's Poi that he did at AFA was really affecting. I judged the semifinal of Poi at AFA, and not only his program, but Josh Planos I thought was amazing. His program on.
What were they about?
KB's was the way that I explain it is he uses this metaphor, which I really love. That, you know, if imagine that you're in an art gallery, and you're looking at a wall, and on the wall is a bunch of Polaroids of people. When you're up close, you can really see all the differences between everybody, and it's very clear that, you know, they're different people, that they all have their own stories and their own past and their own futures and everything. But as you step back, the image gets a little bit blurrier, right? And he kind of, from a performative standpoint and a creative standpoint, talks about how, you know, as creators of performances, of content, of art, that we need to be mindful of, you know, giving sort of homage and attention to each individual person, each individual story, each individual character, because it's very easy to kind of fall into something that's a little bit more stereotypical. So I thought that message was really incredible. And then Josh Planos, who I mentioned as well, his was a program on his own ADD, ADHD, and his use of Ritalin, and how specifically Ritalin has kind of been culturally appropriated for basically, the cultural appropriation of Ritalin has resulted in its, you know, delegitimization by the rest of, you know, the public. It was a very personal story for him, I know, and so it was like super exciting to see, you know, that whole Poi round. Shout out to that entire Poi round, which was absolutely amazing. But those two were particularly incredible. Some other amazing performances I've seen are. You know, in duo, which I like to find myself watching a lot. Even at this past tournament, I saw a lot of amazing stuff. But Ray Roberts and Nick Gilliard doing their duo about Emmett Till and Trayvon Martin, Outcry, which is a play, I thought was super impactful. Just, you know, for even the writer of that piece of literature to put those two characters, you know, side by side, to open a discussion about, you know, race relations today in America, as well as, you know, a century ago, was, I think, a very powerful dialogue and conversation to be had. Let me see. I got to try and go back through a couple of the older ones. Gaynor Newman anything that he ever did was incredible to me, but particularly I never cried so hard as when I watched, he did a poetry program that was in quarterfinals at AFA on masculine conception, the notion that like men can conceive, that just really tore me apart. He also did a program following his senior year on gay-straight alliances, which he didn't take to nationals, but really tore me apart. So if anybody got to see that, I hope that.
So you see all these different types of things. You have it, and first of all, thank you at AJ Curry for your question. But
Yeah,
you
thank
see all
you,
these,
AJ, and congrats on that.
you see all these questions and everything, and you see all these performances and everything, and you're able to, I guess, take it, and now you're gonna put it in a visual perspective. You're
Mhm.
going to create something. So, I mean, for a second, let's talk about November, because, I mean, we're heading towards the big project that you're working on soon. November is a story about Theo. And, I mean, I guess, you want to explain what the video is, what the short film is?
Sure. So the basic kind of synopsis in a nutshell is that the main character we follow, Theo Landers, had recently witnessed a man pass away outside of a pizza parlor, and then immediately after he returned home, his father called him and told him that his mother had passed away from a long-fought battle with laryngeal cancer, and he had to give the eulogy. So it follows him in the 3 days following this event that kind of was forced upon him, or events, I guess. And so it's just really kind of a, exploration in a lot of ways of, the feeling that comes out of, I use kind of the phrase love and loss, because I think that there's a dynamic there that, we're always kind of suspended on some part of the spectrum in between those two things, or maybe past each of those things, on our way to something else. But I think that those are kind of, reference points that a lot of us, I hope and I think that we can relate to, but also that we experience in everyday life. So yeah, the film really centers on kind of that characters, dealing with those specific feelings of kind of despair, of numbness, of pain at the same, emotional pain, but maybe physical numbness, or somewhere in between or past those two ideas. And kind of, his coping mechanisms, his, how he ultimately, kind of the discussion we were having before of how do you get, these feelings out in the real world. And I think that's kind of the gist, the general gist.
And it's like, for those of you that haven't seen it, definitely check it out, because it's raw and real. And I think even the shots have this kind of like, I guess, intensity to them, where you're like, it's kind of, you don't fully get the whole picture. It's not like kind of like I would say like Steven Spielberg, where you got these like big wide shots. It's kind of like this intimate, detailed, we're in it for the ride. And I think there's something about it that is it tugs at your heart. And I guess what were your thoughts when you thought about shooting this? Creating it, give us a little bit of the background behind, creating a short film.
Sure. It's a process. It was definitely something that was, difficult, but that again, I was glad that I had, some people with me who had gone through this process before and were really able to kind of seamlessly guide me through, my first time making anything on film. I think part of the thing, if you're someone who's watching that is maybe interested in going into film, I think the main piece of advice that I learned and that I would pass on to you is that you just have to do it. There's no one who's gonna come along and necessarily open up this, magical opportunity for you to just make a movie out of nowhere. It's got to be something that, like we were talking about earlier, you're determined about, but something that you have to make a choice to go do. And I think that was something that, definitely stuck in my mind as November was something that was being made, because obviously it was my, first real artistic exploration post-speech, but also my first film. So it was something where I was kind of, trying to take all of the things I learned in speech and debate about creating a performance, constructing you know, an emotionally dynamic product that is, you know, inspired by a feeling and communicates a feeling, and translating that through a different medium, you know, for a different audience. You know, it was very much, you know, not to get too bogged down in like the specifics of it, but there's a lot of planning that goes into it. You know, there's a lot of production design, and I was thankful to work with a really great production design person, Kate Bateman, Nick's sister. So she was really, you know, great about, you know, setting up meetings with me and where we could talk about, you know, well, what are the costumes going to be like? How are we going to construct these environments? You know, what do we need physically or need, you know, in terms of resources or, you know, experience in order to make this happen? And you were talking specifically about the shots, which is almost entirely by wonderful cinematographer David Ross and Nicholas Bateman's, you know, kind of brainchildren, because they were the ones that were really in charge of technically constructing how the whole thing was really going to play out. Because again, that was something that I, you know, didn't have any experience doing from the technical side of, you know, actually sitting down, writing, you know, an entire performance or writing an entire, you know, product, and then actually translating that onto the film was something where, you know, what I wrote down initially, and some of you may actually have the shooting script from when we sent that out when we were doing crowdfunding for November, was ultimately very different from actually how it ended up on film. You know, and it's not like a negative or a positive difference. It's just, you know, I think it shows the amount of preparation and the amount of time and energy and resources and experience that goes into actually, you know, translating something in your mind into something that's can be seen, you know, for other people.
Now we're about to, you know, we're going to get into August, because I mean that's the main event, that's the main show. You know, you're working on this new project called August. It's a short film, and it's actually a prequel, the beginning of the series that ends with November. And
Right.
And I think it's a really exciting thing, and I want you to explain it. But before we get into what August is about, I want to change it up a little bit, have a little bit of fun. You know, we've been talking for a little bit, and for those of you that are watching and listening while it's live, definitely hit us up with your tweets. Speech Never Dies, or at Speech Never Dies. That's our Twitter handle. If you put hashtag Millspaugh Speaks, we'll answer your questions, or we'll have Ethan answer your questions. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to speak for him. So if you have any questions for him, definitely hit us up with the tweet. I got 5 questions. 5 questions that have to deal with August and film in some way, shape, or form. Okay, and I'm going to ask you 5 different questions. And hopefully you can answer them, get them right. There's no like car at the end. You're not going to win a car if you answer them all right, or you know, win $1 million. I'm poor. And
Maybe I can win some like, pride or some brownie points or something like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll give you a hip hip hooray at the end of this. Definitely.
Hip hip hooray. That's what I'm looking for. All right.
So I'm going to ask you 5 questions. Answer them, see if you can get them right, and then we'll, you know, see what happens afterwards. Okay. My first question is: this movie is coming out in August, and it features 4 radical reptiles and a rat.
4 radical reptiles and a rat.
4 radical reptiles and a rat.
I'm gonna go with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
2.
Is that correct?
No, they're restarting the series. You got it right.
Okay, well, excuse me that they have to restart the series every 2 years. Wasn't there just a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, it started off. There's like 4 of them out like in the ether. So like you got it right. I give you the point.
All right, I get like half a brownie point. I'm cool with that.
All right, next question. This movie was released in August and is about the creator of Apple.
Assuming that would be Jobs.
Jobs is correct. Steve Jobs. Well, I guess Ashton Kutcher playing Jobs. Rest in peace, Steve Jobs.
Right.
And I guess, what did you think of the film? Or have you seen it?
I haven't. No, I actually haven't seen that one. I saw like the trailer.
And that's it.
That's the end of the story.
That was the end of it. What? I guess real quick, what is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh man, I think my favorite movie of all time would have to be Killer of Sheep. It's by Charles Burnett. It was made in 1977, but it wasn't released technically until 2007 because of like copyrights on the songs that they use. But it's an incredible film. If you can find it anywhere, I encourage you, more than encourage you, I demand that you go see it, because it's not only very much shaped the kind of films that I make / want to make, but I also think it's a really important and underviewed film.
Interesting. And what's the name of it again?
Killer of Sheep by Charles Burnett. It was I believe it was the film that he made while he was getting his master's. Maybe that's my relationship to it. It's basically it's about South Central LA in the 1970s. It just kind of follows a group of people around their narratives, and that's really kind of what it's about, and that's why I love it, is that it doesn't try to take I think it's easy, especially with film, for when you do make something, it to become kind of the narrative that dominates the discussion over a certain issue. And I think that the way that he aesthetically approached, what was happening in South Central LA in the 1970s, and kind of the dynamics that were going on there, I think was really incredible, because he didn't frame it as, this is what is going on, this is how it feels, this is what it's like to be here. He just said, basically, with the way that he carried the camera, this is an experience of what's going on here. This is a narrative. This is, one set of people's experiences of what's going on here, but it shouldn't define, the discussion of what's happening. Obviously, not a lot of people saw the film in the 1970s because it didn't gain distribution until the 2000s. But anyway, the point is, Killer of Sheep, incredible film, probably my favorite.
All right, definitely put it on your list. And let's go into the next question, number 3. You've gotten 2 right. You're on a roll. You're on your way to the imaginary $1 million and the Bentley. Question number 3. Julia Roberts and Meryl Streep star in a film about a dysfunctional and distant family from Oklahoma brought back together for a funeral.
August Osage County.
August Osage County. That is correct. Nice job. You said it so clean that I'm not even gonna waste time. Take a second to even talk about this. Okay, we're gonna go to number 4. Number 4. Okay, this actor was born in August and also won an Academy Award for being a boxer named Jake LaMotta.
That would be Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro. Do your best, De Niro. Do your best.
Oh man, I got no De Niro game at all. I can do the impersonation of Robert De Niro from Knocked Up when Paul Rudd goes, "These shoes." That's all I can do. That's all I got. Not an accurate one at all.
I can't even do that. I can't. My face. If I did that face, let's see. Look.
You gotta kind of sink it back and say, "These shoes."
I'll have to work on it. This is another thing that I'm going to put on my list of things to do. I'm building them up. So, the last question that I got for you is, this film is a prequel to the 2013 film November.
That would be August.
Your film.
Yes, my film, correct.
August. Let's talk about that film, and I guess what your plans are for it. Give the fans just a little bit about the background and what's going on with it involving the production.
Sure. So, from a production standpoint right now, what's happening is that we are in the final 4 days, kind of like March Madness, I guess. Final 4 days of crowdfunding for the film, which is happening on Rocket Hub. So you can check that out by going to rockethub.com/38526. I don't know where they come up with those numbers, but we're we've been getting a lot of donations the last couple days, and thank you so much to everyone who's donated so far. Thank you so much. Your support is really what's kind of driving this thing forward. But yeah, so we're in the last couple days of that. We are currently moving into production, which will be happening the weekend of May 16th in New York City. So we're kind of getting scheduling and stuff all lined up for that. We have almost all the cast and crew locked in. We are in the third draft of the script. So things are moving in the direction of making the film, which is always where we kind of want to be moving.
And I guess, what is the film about? So you have November that's about life and death, well, about loss and love, and going through Theo. Do we follow Theo at the beginning, or where are we? What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah, so it's important to again explicate kind of what you said, which is that November is while it was the first film made in this kind of series that I'm constructing, which I've kind of called digital shorts about love and loss for people like us. August is the beginning, like the first chapter. So basically what's happening is we're following a completely different character named Tom Feist, who has just received a very harrowing diagnosis medically. And he is kind of dealing with some of the same feelings that Theo, I think, deals with in a lot of ways. I mean, it is, still love and loss, but it's definitely a different approach that this character has. He's definitely a little bit more, I guess, determined, you could say, in a way, since we were talking about determination earlier. Basically, the whole film is kind of the answer to the question, what do you do when it feels like you can't go on, sort of thing. And I think for this character, he definitely tries to push toward everything that's holding him back to kind of break through all that. So yeah, that's kind of the general, plot of this one. But different characters, similar format, I think, to the way that November was set up, but sort of a different emotion that we're kind of approaching with this one.
And I think that's an interesting aspect, especially that it's different, but it's also very personal to you. And this brings me to kind of another Twitter question that I have from a fan, and it's a two-part question. They've sent a first question that is a very important question, but doesn't kind of transition into what we're talking about as much.
Okay.
So let me say that first question. This is from AC Blackman. Do you have any tips for growing such awesome facial hair? And how you do that?
I don't. I just do it. It just happens because it grows like this. So do I have any tips?
From left to right. It grows
don't
left to
shave.
Right.
I guess that would be the first tip. Don't shave, and then eventually it'll look. I don't know. I think people have different. We've got a different kind of like facial hair thing going on. Everyone has their own sort of deal. I do not know, but I definitely appreciate your support.
my facial hair is like patches. Like you see this, it's fantastic. I like this.
Yeah, but I like that though. It looks good on you.
See, yeah. Well, that's the only thing that I can work with, honestly. So.
Everybody's got their own thing. So this is what I've kind of got going on. It's not going to be around much longer. So.
All right. Well, now back to the serious question.
Okay.
Up a little bit. He also asked. He also asked, how do you deal with the pressure of putting yourself out there in such a personal way?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll start by talking about someone who is actually one of our funders. Her name is Joanna Arno. She did a film called I Hate Myself, Smiley Face, which you should definitely look up. It's like a 50-minute documentary in which she did was basically document her entire relationship with the person she was in a relationship with at the time. And her film very transparently was about, is this a good person to be dating? And it follows, their relationship, and, basically she just has a camera with her the entire time that she's going through this relationship. And I found that incredibly courageous for someone to do, but I think it definitely kind of speaks to what this question is asking, which is, it's something that she dealt with, I know, a lot during the, both production of the film, because she was bringing her parents into everything that was happening, and, trying to be incredibly transparent with what was going on, as well as after it, really putting yourself out there. For her, I think in a very, very, transparently personal way. But I think, all filmmakers really, all performance artists, really all artists, put themselves out, to the world in some form or another. I think we use, kind of conventions like fiction or narrative sometimes to kind of, shield ourselves a little bit or kind of buffer that, real personal connection, because sometimes not sometimes, it is very difficult to do. To like literally go up to people that you don't know or who don't know you and just tell them everything about yourself, something that we really just don't do in real life. So to get back to the exact question, which was about how I put myself out there, I think it's the only important thing that I would really say is that it's something that I'm very conscious of. It's like something that is very much a part of why I do what I do is self-expression. I think that there, at least for me, and I know other people feel this way too, and it's something that I care deeply about, is that, it's not only a part of our time, but a part of our generation and just a part of the human experience that you go through a lot of things, physically, emotionally, in all aspects. And so for me, it's something where if I don't have that creative outlet, where I'm constantly getting these impressions and I don't have a way to express them, then I feel kind of pent up, I guess. So finding an avenue or a medium or, a way to get these, feelings out, both through, like the actual narratives of November and August themselves, where the main character is very much trying to express these feelings. I think for me, as an artist, it's very important to express what I'm going through in a way that is not only, expressive and artistic and creative, but also a shared experience. I think it's really important that I, share with other people that may be going through these similar situations, these, kind of having these similar feelings that, I'm going through them too, that I, am experiencing these things. And for me, I have the opportunity to write about them and to, turn them into art and share them with other people. And I think because of that opportunity, it's my responsibility to do that. So that's kind of the thing that keeps me going through, the kind of, at least the current kind of artistic phase or series that I'm developing, with these films is that it is not just, it is about me, it's about me expressing myself, but also about sharing that with other people.
And okay, and this is something that I completely, relate to in the sense of, working on something that you feel like, I not only am I doing something personal to get my voice out, but I'm also doing something to, help, I guess, inspire somebody else's voice. And I guess, where did you feel, I think this is one of the most important questions that I could ask, is how important, where's that inspiration inside where you're like, I don't care what anybody else thinks, but I know that my voice is important, and I'm going to share my voice in some way?
Yeah. I think to go back to kind of what I was talking about and the way that kind of I operationalize like my creativity is that, it's a series of impressions and expressions where, I get inspired by other people and I express, and that it inspires me to express, my own personal feelings or, my personal experiences or whatever. Like in the case of, I Hate Myself, smiley face. I think that was a really inspirational film, and that actually came out after November, before August, obviously. But yeah, I think that, as I continue to express myself, I hope to kind of forward that cycle for other people. So to, impress upon others something that inspires them as well. I don't know how much control I have over that or anything. I'm still, I don't have I'm not the wise old man with all the answers yet, so I'll save that conversation till maybe a couple decades from now. But I think, the most important art that can be made isn't made because it can be, but because it has to be. And so that's something that I've always internalized in my own pursuits, as few as they have been so far, is that I think it's more important for me to talk about things that have to be talked about for my own sake, as well as for others. You know, with this movie, we have a really strong tie to suicide prevention for youth today, which I feel really strongly about, and is something that I think needs to be talked about. And I think it's, again, important that when you have the opportunity to, express or, bring a voice to a topic or an issue or a message that you care very passionate about, it's your responsibility to do that. So as much as, again, this is something where, I am personally inspired by things that happen to me, to express those experiences, as well as, to artistically kind of pull the, feelings out of myself in order to kind of find some sort of attempt or first step towards closure. In my own life, I think it's important that, you're kind of putting your mark on something that means something to other people, and is that, something you can bring light to.
What is the most inspirational phrase or somebody said to you about filmmaking?
I'd say two things. Well, neither one of them are kind of about filming, but I think they relate. The first thing was when I left graduate school and went off to start making films. I had this really great professor in the art department that I had taken a class with, who simply told me when I told him that I wasn't going to be coming back to school and that I was going to be going and creating films. He told me 3 words. He said, "Don't get lost," which I think just really stuck with me. Trying to unpack what that meant. And playing on the clear dynamic that exists in that phrase, between losing yourself, in your work, which I think is a lot of times encouraged by, the artistic community or, by real life. I think that sometimes it's something that you maybe are forced into having to do or feeling like you have to do. And then obviously, not getting lost and always being aware of kind of where you are and where you're going. It's something that, when I've been on either side of that spectrum, is something that I've looked towards, and it's kind of guided me through my artistic career, post-college. The other thing I would say, there's this mantra. It's from a song, so no one actually told it to me, but I guess they kind of did. And it goes, "It's been so long, we're still right here." It's from a band called Beach House, and it's a song called 10 Mile Stereo. You should listen to it. They're really good. They're from Baltimore, and they're awesome. And that phrase has always, especially recently, stuck with me and been something that's kind of driven me through some tougher, mental or psychological or emotional moments, is that, no matter where you are in your life, no matter where you're going, that it has been so long and we're all still right here. I don't know, maybe it's cliche, but that's kind of the thing that sticks with me and inspires me.
What do you, I guess, in the creation of August, you're about to, start doing the production, filming aspect of it. You're almost done, 4 days left with the whole campaign, crowdsourcing. I guess, where's your focus now? I mean, of course, the production and stuff, but where is your?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting for me because with this series, I have put myself in the position of, kind of to harken back to the discussion we were having about what really got me interested in speech in the first place, is this position of writer, director, producer, actor. Playing a lot of different roles in the creation of film or films. So right now, it's really starting to, after these next 4 days, really switching gears, from kind of producer to director, and then, from director moving into actor, which is something that I'm really excited about. To, get yourself in, really sink your teeth into a role is obviously something that, is always really cool to do. but so the focus right now is obviously finishing out the crowdfunding campaign, but then moving into getting everything together to make sure that production can run smoothly, and then finally getting myself into a situation where I'm able to, I wouldn't say get myself into a situation. I'd say prepare for the expression of these feelings, because I think that's really what it comes down to. In film in general, is that you can have, there's 1,000,001 different ways to make a film, but when you have a performance or a feeling or a reason why it's happening that comes through during production, that's always, the best thing that you can do for a film, I think, is to have something that you're passionate about, or really any art, is as long as the passion and the inspiration is there and you're able to express that. I think that's the most important thing. So that's kind of where the focus is going, is more towards the content of the script, the feelings and the emotions of the experiences, and trying to find an effective way to communicate and share that with the audience.
Now, I got one last question from me, and this is I think we all in the journey through life are trying to figure this out, and that's in a sense our own personal legacy, especially regardless of what point we are in our lives, whether it's in high school. You're walking out and you're like, man, this is my legacy. This is how I'll be remembered in high school. This is how I'll be remembered in undergrad, college, or at my job, or with my family, regardless of anything. And I guess, as a creator, somebody that makes art, somebody that tries to make something beautiful that's personal to them, but then sends it out into the ether, what exactly do you want your legacy to be? And doesn't mean have to do with filmmaking, but in general,
Sure.
What is your legacy?
It's an interesting question, because I try as much as possible in a lot of ways to not think about that. I think the concept of legacy is something that we operationalize a lot as something that you can create or that is buildable, rather than something that exists. I think when I look back at the 1990s Dallas Cowboys, I say, man, the legacy of that team was incredible, right? But it's not something that I, as an artist, am, I think, able to actively control, and thus I try as much as possible not to let it in kind of to my artistic, field of view. I think what my focus is again, kind of as we've talked about this whole time, is the journey. I think that living these moments, living the opportunity to be able to express myself through the film medium, I think is a huge experience and moment that I don't want to forget. And I think that a lot of times when we talk about your legacy, I think it becomes like, well, I need to manipulate that moment into something in order to give it meaning. And I think that that's something that I try, maybe selfishly, I'm not sure, to kind of steer away from. But at the end of the day, I can tell you what, while it may not be my legacy, what I want to accomplish, which is that, in the most cliche and simple form, I want to make the world a better place. But I think that starts with a dialogue between people about, their experiences, their emotions, and specifically, I feel very strongly about youth. I feel very strongly about mental and psychological issues, as well as physical ones, medical ones. But I think what's starting to become my kind of artistic niche, if I can, is generally people with problems, which I think is everyone. But everyone has problems, whether they be physical or mental or emotional, or whatever. I think that it's important that we keep in mind that we're all one, and that whatever one person of us is holding in, it's affecting everybody else. Not to say that it's a negative thing, but I think it's the impetus of the others to help those people express whatever they're holding in. So I think that that's kind of ethereally, maybe ambiguously, maybe my focus or where I want to put my energy into it is how can I, as a citizen, as a human, as a filmmaker, as whatever label you want to put on it, how can I connect people? How can I find out what's happening with people, help people express themselves, inspire others to express themselves. How can I make sure that we're all kind of on the same page in a way, almost. It's unclear. It's hard for me to discuss because, like I said, it's like something that, I don't know, it's not something I think about as much.
But I think the fact of the matter is, and I don't think that it's cliche. I mean, I'm kind of off the script as, me as the, the interviewee, that type of process. I don't think that it's cliche. And I don't think that it's one of those things. I think that as much as many people can say that they want to make the world a better place, I think that I think that's the right mindset to have. I don't think that's a bad mindset to have. I don't think that it's cliche. I think that it's that idea of that we can do that. As long as we have that mindset, then we can do that. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox right now. I do that, 24/7 besides this interview. But I'm just saying, as long as you say something like that, you have that mindset, I appreciate that, and hopefully a lot of people appreciate that. So, I mean, as long as you do that, I think, your legacy, even if you don't care about it, is intact. So, anyway, August. It's really exciting. I'm excited about the whole process. It's been really great talking to you about everything like that. I have one more question because, of course, we wanted to have the fans ask questions about, what's your thoughts and everything like that. If you guys, just real quick before we get into those last questions, if you have any questions, please hit us up at Speech Never Dies. Tweet the questions with the hashtag Millspaugh Speech, and, I'll answer the question or have him answer the question. Real quick, definitely check out, the progress this man is making. He's an up-and-coming star, filmmaker, all those things above. And check out November, check out August, check out September when it happens, and, October, he'll do a 12-month series. He'll do all of it. But definitely check it out, and check out his, give him, what's the link to the crowdsourcing? There's 4 more days.
You can find it at just http://www.rockethub.com/38526. I wonder what zip code that is. Can we find someone to look that up?
Yeah, I'm gonna get my my research and development guys.
Sure, you've got assistants, right? You've got people back there.
Yeah. We're also, if you don't remember that, definitely just go to speechneverdies.org. We have 2 posts, our interview with him that you can look and talk and conversate with us about, this conversation that we've had live, and you can also take a look at the links that we're posting about November and August.
And it's also all on the August Facebook page too, which you can like if you want. But it's at August Short Film 2014. So facebook.com/August Short Film 2014.
We have a whole bunch of different, social media sites that have this information on there. So please don't be afraid to check it out. That's all we're trying to say there. Anyway, let me get to the last question of the night, and this comes from @Jeremy Dubberly. I think I'm saying it right. I hope I'm saying it right. And it goes back to speech, and I think this is an interesting thing. It's not uncommon that we met because it's not uncommon, but it's not a coincidence that we're having this interview. And the reason that we are having this interview is because we met because of speech. And even though Loudspeaker is an organization that's definitely about free speech and everything like that, this is a different format of speech. But for us, it gets back to the root of where it began. And the question that he asks is, what is the most important element for speech people to bring to post-speech life?
Oh man, that is the question that I think is the important one. And I think the simple answer is your voice, probably. and everything that goes with that. I think that, speech has this incredible ability to foster your creativity and your voice and your style and your, physical capabilities and your emotional range, and all of these fantastic things that I think a lot of other people don't have the opportunity to explore. And I think that that is probably the most important, to put it in, kind of a simple package, that's the most important thing that you can bring, to the outside speech world. I work a lot, not only do I do like film and, speech and that sort of thing, but I also have kind of a day job where I work in the business kind of end of things, and I've, done PR and that sort of thing for a while, so I've worked with a lot of people in the business world who don't know much about speech but are very interested to learn when I start to tell them about it. And they're very attracted to people who have a voice and who have, creativity and originality and have, all of these skills that speech naturally cultivates. I think it's, again, though, like I said earlier, important that you do it. Like, it's not just, you're not just going to fall out of speech and then something else is magically going to happen, into your lap. You got to go out there and you got to, find what it is that you love to do that's outside of speech, where you can really express yourself, or find, where your niche is in, the real world or in the business world or whatever it is you want to go into. But I think it's important that you do it and you keep doing it and you stay determined, like we were talking about.
Well, sir, Ethan, it has been a pleasure talking to you. We went a little bit over time.
We're at like 11:30 right now, so we need to kind of close.
We're definitely disqualified from this competition.
we're way DQ'd. We're like the worst ADS final. And by the worst, I mean the best.
It's because it's been a pleasure, honestly. And
thank you, man.
Thank you so much for everything, talking to us. I wish you the best of luck with the project. Please, for those of you that are watching, just stay on track, monitoring this guy's journey, because he's going to be doing a lot of great things. And for our first live online interview, it was definitely, like I said, a pleasure of talking to you.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you so much, and for having this forum for people to actually express themselves and magnify their voices. I mean, it's a loudspeaker, so thank you for everything that you do, and thank you all the Loudspeaker fans for tuning in and watching. I'm so appreciative and humbled. Thank you.
Well, let me just say this real quick, and the party doesn't stop for us here at Loudspeaker and everything like that. We got a lot of more episodes and things that we're working on, so stay tuned. Stay on speechneverdies.org, and we're going to be posting a lot of things. And even though that this is our first online interview, this is definitely not the last. We are definitely working on setting up a lot more different interviews with people that love food, that are working on digging wells in Africa, and just a whole bunch of different creative sorts, besides just filmmaking, which, it's exciting for us. So stay on Loudspeaker, stay at speechneverdies.org, and keep on listening. So with that, I'm Chandler Jonathan, and I will see you when I see you.